Ignited by a fascination for knights, armor, and swords, Abraham Pardee has fine-tuned his craft of metalworking into an incredible art form. Whether it is functional art, architectural art, or a piece of work inspired by life around him, Abraham puts his heart into each project, creating works of beauty for all to enjoy.
The reason I gravitate to metal in particular is just because of how malleable it can be, yet how resilient it is at rest. At room temperature, it's this immensely strong, resilient material that can hold up to force and pressure and time better than many materials, but then at the same time you can, with a little heat, a couple thousand degrees, you've got this fluid, supple plastic medium that you can really just manipulate ad infinitum, and there's always something else to discover with it, and always new techniques to apply to it. I started doing metalwork in 2006 when I came to the Appalachian Center for Craft to start my Bachelor of Fine Arts there. And I've been doing it pretty much full-time since then. Original origins of that were my interest as a younger person in knights and armor and swords and all that nerdy stuff, and but that quickly evolved after I started to be exposed to actual metal art, you know, the sculpture and art and craft and functional items and tools. As far as my sculpture, the inspiration often comes from just real simple things around me, just everyday life, or thoughts about, you know, people, places, time, and then usually I'll start with an element, something that I've come up with previously or sort of have the notion that I would like to try to make, and then the overall composition tends to grow out of this handful of elements. I'm a very scattered person in some ways, so it's hard for me to feel comfortable just narrowing down to a really finite scope. So I tend to work in a lot of different directions. So I make some smaller home items. I like to make kitchenwares and kitchen utensils. Furniture, I really enjoy working in furniture. And my girlfriend is a weaver, and so we've collaborated on a number of pieces where she'll weave the fabric and upholster it onto a forged steel piece of furniture for seating, which has been a lot of fun. The metal's only plastic while it's at heat, so once it's down to about 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit, that's cold as far as I'm concerned, and so I have to put it back in the fire if I want to do more to it. So it's just a constant heating and cooling, squeezing and squishing and squashing, and so one particularly good blacksmith who put out some great videos before he passed away, on instructional videos, describes hot steel as an unbreakable bag of goo. And I find that to be a pretty apt description of its behavior. You know, anything you can do with a lump of clay, you can do with a piece of hot steel if you know how to apply the pressure and use something in place of fingers. Some people are more purists, and I'm definitely not a purist when it comes to traditional craft, but I still use tools and techniques that really haven't changed in a couple thousand years. That said, I use a TIG welder and an oxypropane torch on a regular basis, and I have no compunction about that whatsoever, but at the same time, I might go torch cut something or TIG weld something together and then put it in a coal fire that's just run by air burning coal, and then use a hand hammer, which essentially hasn't changed in thousands of years, on an anvil, which really isn't, you know, my anvil is probably 150 years old, and do these same techniques and work the material in the same way that people have done since it first was discovered that they could. So it is fun to reach back into the history of the craft. What I usually tell people who are just beginning or interested in getting started in blacksmithing is there's a whole litany of craft schools and more are opening every year around the country that offer really good class programs. And just take a, save a little money, take a class. This is something people have been doing for 5,000 years. Why reinvent the wheel? And that's the fastest way you can sort of get an idea, A, if this is something that I want to do or would like to learn more about, and B, what are the basics? There's a few events that I do every year. I do Off the Beaten Path tour, which is a local tour in Cannon and DeKalb counties. It's a lot of fun. You get to see the fall colors and a lot of great art. I also do Art and Ale tour here in Sparta, and my studio is one of the stops. So if you like art and you like local beer, you can come and visit my shop and see me. And then I also participate in Art Prowl in Cookeville, and I do demos in the afternoon both days, so live blacksmithing demonstrations.